In a previous edition of Wild About Wheels, we introduced you to Jim Wangers, an automotive industry consultant in the San Diego area who, 30 years ago, was a marketing wizard with Pontiac. Jim was one of the founding fathers of the legendary muscle car that started that whole movement, the Pontiac GTO. We recently made another visit to Jim's office complex to see the fantastic collection of muscle-bound Pontiac iron he has stored there. In 1960, Jim won the stock eliminator title at the NHRA U.S. Nationals. So it was no surprise that Jim's pride of rubber-melting tigers are all quarter-mile screamers.
This is my prized toy today. What started out life as an original 74 Super Duty is today a totally redone traditional Pontiac engine, a 440 cubic incher, which is 428/60 over, with a new set of the Edelbrock heads and a very elaborate nitrous setup. And just last Sunday, the car ran a 974 at 144 miles an hour, driven by my very capable shoe, Mr. Ed Dufresne, who does it a whole lot better than I do these days. This is my favorite GTO, probably the best GTO of all of them, primarily, I guess, because I had the most difficult time persuading Pontiac to build this car. And this is the '69 Judge, done in carousel red, which some people call orange. We sold over 80% of them in '69 in this color. Needless to say, it's kind of the signature car. One of the real significant things about all of the Judges is that it featured the ram air intake setup, which was developed by this time to a very fine science. You'll notice that all of the fresh air coming into this car comes in through those twin hood scoops. And as you can see through some very good research, Pontiac had perfected a foam seal which sat tight under the hood, sealing off all of the under-hood air, or all of the engine temperature, and that only the fresh air coming in through the hood scoops went down through the carburetor and into the engine. Needless to say, that required some special tuning, enabling the car to perform to its absolute best. Another one of my very favorite Pontiacs is the '69 Trans Am. This was, in fact, the first Trans Am, and it was introduced exactly at the same time as was the '69 Judge, a special GTO, a special Firebird. Unfortunately, the GTO took off like gangbusters with the Judge. The Trans Am was frankly a bit of a failure, so much so that we only built 697 of them, which would suggest that today it might be a pretty good collectible. The design on the Trans Am is almost perfect. The fresh air comes in over the top and goes right into the hood scoop, producing not only the desired cooling effect, but even a ramming effect. And in this particular case, you see how well Pontiac, way back in 1969, designed a very functional fresh air intake with the air cleaner element actually mounted on the underside of the hood. The air trap very nicely placed so that it blocks out all underhood air temperature, enabling the car to perform completely on fresh air, cool fresh air coming in off the leading edge of the hood. This car is in the collection because it's the 20th anniversary, the '69, the '79, and the '89. As part of the anniversary series, it was a pace car at the 73rd Indianapolis 500 in 1989. This is kind of an interesting car, though, because, believe it or not, this is the fastest production Pontiac, and unfortunately, it's powered by a turbocharged Buick V6 engine. This one is in the collection because it represents the very, very first Firebird. While it's not the first Firebird, it also is the first Firebird 400, which was a car that nobody in the community, the automotive community, ever believed that Pontiac would build or be allowed to build. But this car actually came out as a production car with a 400 cubic inch engine in the relatively light F-body platform, which was different than the GTO, which was built off of the A-body. Another interesting thing about this car, it's in the popular Verdoro green color, which at the time was an absolute exclusive to Pontiac. And many, many of the Firebirds, as many as 40% of them, in early 1967 were built in this Fedora green color.
And this may be the GTO every Pontiac enthusiast would die for. An original 1966 GTO convertible with all the right options.
This being a 66 convertible is probably really the image of what the GTO was all about back in its early days. It features the traditional tri-power. It's a 4-speed. It's got a safety track rear end. Another interesting feature on this car is that in addition to the fully instrument panel, including a tachometer, Pontiac also offered a vacuum gauge mounted on the center console, which was really almost contradictory to the personality of the whole car, because all that was designed to do is tell you when you were getting the best mileage. Usually these GTOs function with the vacuum gauge completely pinned.
The whole muscle car rebellion was punched into high gear over 30 years ago by the first GTO. Jim Wangers and his great collection of go-fast Pontiacs are vivid reminders of how people who love cars will forever be addicted to horsepower.